Years ago, a home was founded in the Chicago area to serve the Jewish community and in particular the blind. And in the last 40 years, the Association of Jewish Blind of Chicago has helped open the eyes of the residents and the community around them to showing people how to live in a very human environment. I'm Deborah Palmer, and I'm pleased to introduce to you two very important people who have a very integral role in the home. Fred Oskin, the Executive Director, and Ceil Goldstein, Activities Director.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We're very fortunate to have some footage with us today from the home, but before we even look at that, you're very keen to point out the self-sufficiency in people, to really hone in on that. How do you enable people who come to the home to become self-sufficient?
We really believe strongly in the philosophy of being not just a shelter care home, a long-term residence home, but we see ourselves as a rehabilitation center, so that we see having people come to us at a point in their life where they've suffered a loss of their vision certainly, and usually there's other losses as well. If it's an aged person, chances are they come to us shortly after losing a spouse, or they've had some kind of a traumatic accident or illness or injury where they lose their health, and they're at a point where they need to be rehabilitated, and they need to learn how to adjust to all the problems that they have, the vision only being one problem, but to be able to learn how to get along. And so we gear our entire operation to that mission, and so the staff work together, each trying to help tune into a particular part of a person's life. Our occupational therapy program helps, our social work staff helps, our nurses. We try to focus in on all the different phases of a person's life and to help them learn how to get around, how to eat, how to use all their skills to the maximum so that they can live as normal a life as possible.
Well, how do you deal with the person who, you have someone in your home who came about a year ago, I believe, someone in their 20s who's led a very active life and suddenly, by the misfortune of an accident, is struck blind. How do you even begin to teach this person to even just walk across the street, something that we take for granted without the use of their eyes? Do you work with that in activities? No?
Well, we have mobility instructors that come to the home from the DOORS, which is Department of Rehabilitation Services, and they work with these people. And then, of course, the staff and myself work with them. We walk with them, and we just do the best we can. It depends on the person, too.
Yeah.
I think the biggest handicap, the biggest impediment, really, is the psychological phase of it, and that is that they may not believe, as is the case with this young man, that he could do anything again, and he's still struggling with that loss, much as you grieve when you lose a loved one, that you don't think it's ever possible to live the kind of life that you lived before, when you've known how to see before, as opposed to some of our residents who have never seen for their entire life. And through the activity program, for one, person learns how to rekindle that spirit, and how to reinvigorate one's skills, and how to enrich one's life, so that if you had painted before, for example, it's still possible you could paint again. If you went out walking, if you were very independent before, you can't be as independent. You'll never drive again, but you can still do this. You can learn. They're skills, and they can be learned, but the problem with it is to cut through that barrier of not believing that you can do it.
I imagine it's important to stress to these people who have been independent all their lives that they can still be independent. They don't have to be so dependent on others, you know, to stress that. And one thing you have to help advance that, you have a government, so to speak, within the House, the Residence Advisory Council. What is the purpose of that?
The intention of the Resident Advisory Council is to try to engage all the residents of the home in a type of self-government so that they would feel a part of deciding some of the issues, some of the rules that go on in the home. But more than that, we discuss a lot of common interests. We talk about what's going on in the world. Ceil talks about all the upcoming events and gets them excited, gets them eager to look forward to some of the groups that come into the home from synagogues and some of the parties and Jewish holiday celebrations. And it gives a chance for some people to use their skills. The young man we were just talking about, through our occupational therapy and activity program, he started creative writing. Well, he can come into the council meeting and to show it off a bit. And one young man takes minutes. He remembers absolutely everything that happens from memory, and he writes it down. He types it for us, but he writes it in Braille, and then he reads it back as our secretary.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's Jeff you're talking about. In fact, you're fortunate because we have footage of Jeff reading the minutes and typing the minutes in his room, and if we can take a look at that
now. He's a phenomenal young man.
July 22nd, 1983. Meeting came to order at 12:58 p.m. 1. Last week's minutes were approved. 2. Since Mr. Kagan was not able to make it here today due to his condition in the hot and humid weather, Mr. Oskin used him as this week's subject. Harry Kagan put the funds together penny by penny, not just dollar by dollar, to build this home.
That was Jeff, the Braille machine. He said he's even moving on. You're thinking of word processing for him, and Xeroxing.
There was a group that donated an electric typewriter. He already had a manual typewriter, but we're hoping we can get him practiced enough so that he'll be able to get into a word processing training, and then eventually into computer work. Then he could come to work in our office doing more than what he does now. Right now he helps us with his abacus, helping do some of our accounting. We've taught him, interestingly, how to use his Xerox machine, in which case he's extremely helpful to us because he can reproduce confidential documents. In fact, I had kidded with him. I gave him a document. I told him to copy it, and he was so delighted because he loves to work. But I said, Jeff, but do me a favor and don't read it, will you? He said, Mr. Oskin, you know that I can't see. But he has a very good sense of humor.
He's very, very quick.
He loves the kids.
Excuse me, he went to a local restaurant and he took their menu and he brailled the menu, and then we have a thermoform machine, which is the Braille version of a Xerox machine, and he thermoformed it and brought it to the restaurant as a gift from him. And so anyone that's blind could come in and read a Braille menu. Yes.
Okay, now, Jeff is someone who's very adept at what he does. He said he memorizes the minutes and he can type them instantly on Braille. He is adept, and he had to adapt. What are the obstacles your residents face when they initially walk through the doors and have to get situated?
Well, it's a new home, and it's different. It's not their home. And we try to make it a Hamish atmosphere, which is very important to them. The staff and the residents themselves try very hard to make this home-like feeling. And then we just start from scratch.
I'd say, too, that there's a couple of problems depending on the person's life beforehand. If we have a person who hasn't had much of a family life before, where the family didn't want to have the person, in fact, mistreated the person, and we have a few of those kind of individuals where they were kept restricted, kept in their rooms, kept in closets perhaps, kept in nursing homes without being able to get around because people didn't want to be bothered, didn't know what to do to help guide the person around, didn't think they could come to a dining room to eat. The person has to be in a position of relearning practically everything. Another kind of problem is if there's a person, and this is especially for an aged person, where they've lived a fairly independent life, or they've had a spouse who could see, and together they lived a fairly independent life, they may miss a lot of the rooms that they had and a lot of the facilities that they had, and so it's very much a brand new life, and they don't have the freedom to come and go as they would with somebody right there who would take them. Rather, they're waiting for visitors to come and visit or to take them out.
In the long run, it's a benefit because then they become even that much more self-sufficient.
Right.
I imagine. You talked about how helpful your staff is. You know, two of you you're two of them. I know that. You have a cadre of volunteers. Also, there's another program, which isn't related, but a self-help support group. And I'd read that where professionals help so much, peers can sometimes take over where the pros cannot. How do the peers help one another?
It's so indigenous to counseling that it's almost just a basic point. But in terms of helping people, there's a method of using peers to console one another and to give ideas for one another. You know, this is how I do it. Maybe if I share this with you, this will help. And it's so prevalent in that there's so many self-help groups for all kinds of afflictions. It has become a very popular kind of program. But in this case, it is just as you might imagine. People come together and they talk about their problems, and then other people will reflect on what has happened to them, and just in the process of sharing, getting it off your chest, and hearing people say, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've had that problem, and to share what they've gone through, it means so much that a person who's a professional who hasn't gone through it can't do as much because they haven't lived through it.
Well, I imagine it's equally as beneficial to you, being the professionals who work with them, if you sit in on these groups to gain more insight.
And their spouses come and they talk over their problems.
I want to ask you about that. What do you do with family involvement, bringing the family in and working with them?
We try to encourage that as much as we can. We have families that come in and visit all the time, and we really don't restrict the hours. We encourage them to have their relatives taken out, go for a family simcha or go for lunch or whatever it might be. And we also have them come in for conferences with some of the department heads periodically, so we can talk about how things are going and keep an open line of communication. And if anything especially wonderful happens, we call and let them know, and if there's any medical problems or any difficulties whatsoever, we also call them. So we stay in touch.
That's important. That's part of the whole rehabilitation process. I know a good deal of that is recreation activities, which Ceil, you've been the mainstay of that. We have some footage we'd like to look at. You brought some of the results. Before we go into that, why don't we see how the people actually make them and what you do with the residents for activities.
You can ride it like Jeffrey. You join us.
Yeah, thinking home version of the old way now.
Let's go in the big one. Okay, great. Jeffrey, come on here. Ready, go.
Good. All right. Okay. Here you are.
Don't fall. If you fall,
Yeah. You get that there on the TV in the TV room. Wow, that's ridiculous. What are we gonna do? Yeah, you like it. He thought he was what he did. He wasn't even let her have a run around the pool and no, I am doing it.
Ceil, you. Okay, the finished product.
This is the finished product that David made. The residents sanded the footstools, the legs of the footstools, and then they varnished them. And then, of course, David screwed in the legs and covered the footstool, and this is the end result.
Beautiful. And that's painstaking work that requires coordination.
He does. David has.
You've worked, and I want to show some of the other products. There's something I really want to ask you. You've worked so closely with these people. You've been their eyes to them, leading them to the exit cycle, leading them to the stool, to the legs. How have they opened your eyes?
Oh, you know, you learn from them. You become very humble and very loving, and you just, David I love them all, but I think they've taught me something that I really couldn't explain. It's just something, it's a warm feeling, an appreciative feeling, certainly. And on Friday night at our Shabbos meals, we talk about, my children ask me about the residents, and we talk about them, and I hope my children have learned too. But I just couldn't explain the feeling that they've given me. In fact, I just love working at the home. This is a very wonderful person to work with, Mr. Oskin. The staff is wonderful, and the people are wonderful. I don't know what more I could say.
They're so wonderful. I know you're supported in
very
good
much
part
so.
From the community, but by individual funding, private individuals. And you receive that, but then you give back. In fact, you have one of the products have given to La Bravida.
Yes, we do. All the products that are, no, not all of them, but most of the products that are made in the arts and craft department, we give to the hospitals, La Bravida, Misericordia, the Ark and Hanukkah, Swedish Covenant Hospital. We just give all these beautiful items to them. We, what else may I show you this, please? This is my favorite. This is Dora of the Wizard of Oz. We call her Devora. And the residents, believe it or not, have made all. Have made all this. They've cut the yarn. They've glued in the eyes. They just put it together. Oh, and sculpting is very important with blind people. Anything that's tactile. And I don't know if you could see this, but this is this is some sculpting that one of the blind residents has done.
Could I add something about this program in which we go out? Ceil takes residents to hospitals and shares with those who are less fortunate. This emanates from our board chairman, who was one of the founders of the home, Harry Kagan, who's a blind man himself, but a successful businessman, but a man who has such deep sensitivity, of course, to the residents of the home, and he feels very strongly in leading us in this direction, because he feels that once you have attained a certain amount of self-sufficiency and you have something going for yourself, it's very basic as a tenet in Judaism, as well as important as a person who's handicapped, to then go and help somebody else. That you never stop, and of course we in Judaism learn this. You're always supposed to help those who are less fortunate, and he's encouraged that, and it has been so important.
Well, suddenly their handicap isn't so handicapped. When you help others, you have something that looks like
they have written material. This is a chassid. This is a puppet. They've written their own material and they put on puppet shows.
You know, there's something else. You show us the products, and I know that would take coordination. I would have difficulty doing that.
Patience.
A lot of patience. What about something like shopping? People feel very independent when they can go shopping. How do they do that?
Well, we're fortunate to have some wonderful volunteers that come to the home. And if a resident wants to go shopping, the volunteers accompany them, as they do maybe if they have a dentist appointment. We're fortunate in having volunteers that come into the home.
We're also fortunate that we've recently received the gift of a van. Beautiful 12-passenger van from the Morris Shapiro Foundation, and through the use of sand, we take residents on excursions in terms of going out to see the world that is there and to see museums and theaters.
Gone to a theater, museum.
This brings up, we have a little time left, this brings up a good point, your community involvement. The activities are not restricted only to the residents. You bring others in, and there's one area in the sanctuary for a synagogue, for services, you bring neighbors into that. That seems to be a very special point of the house, of the home, bringing the community in.
We have a very close tie with the community. On one level, we have some very devoted auxiliary groups who support the home quite strongly, and we also have people who live right in the area who come in and they visit with residents, and they're a part of the minyan for our shul, and they come in and they help entertain, and
we have them in minyan. We have them on tape. These particular people you're talking about in the sanctuary davening, and it's really a lovely sight. And we'll talk about it too afterwards, after we see the footage of the non-Jewish members and how they respond to that. So if we can take a look now at the sanctuary. That was really something to see, them davening with him. How do the non-Jewish members respond to that kind of activity?
You mean the residents? They're very much interested. And then, of course, the residents are very respectful of the other nationalities and religions. As a matter of fact, we have the cutest thing happen on St. Patrick's Day. We have a suggestion box, and one of the Jewish residents said, wouldn't it be nice if we honored them on St. Patrick's Day? And so how do we do it? Great. One of our very wonderful friends of the home sent us corned beef, and so between the cook and the occupational therapist, they cut up salads and they made corned beef and cabbage, and Fred brought green bagels, and we opened it up. Everyone sang to them, Shalom Chavirim. We had the corned beef and cabbage, and we did the Irish jig, and then one of the men who was so touched by this, he said this beautiful saying, may the wind be at your back and the Lord hold you in the palm of his hand. And of course the tears were streaming, and we concluded with Hatikva, the hope, please God, and hope that we should all have peace in this world. You know, you mentioned his beautiful words, and you mentioned Harry Kagan before. He says it also beautiful. He founded the home 40 years ago. We'd like to hear what he has to say about the home, why he founded it, and what it really means to him.
We started the home on Douglas Boulevard in 1943. We bought a building that was 2 flats. We made 18 rooms out of 12. We have started the basement as a dining room and kitchen. We had people who came into the home were living on the sidewalks, were living in very inhumane conditions. They lived in nursing homes. Those days that there weren't actual nursing homes, it was very hard to explain. The old people's homes, especially of the Jewish faith, did not accept any blind people at all. And the only time that they had a blind person there was those who got blind there. And so it was to a point where we had to start the home for the Jewish blind. Our home is a rehabilitational center. The people come here, they're just newly blind people. They don't know how to take care for themselves. And here's where they get educated. You must remember also that when they bring a person in here, in many cases, They bring a old father or mother or sister or who they have here. They put them away in here, and then you don't even see them at times. And this is where we feel that this is a home, not just a home, but a home with a heart.
Fred, Harry mentioned that the home is a home with a heart. What makes the home so unique?
I think that's such an important point. The home is unique, number one, because we're the only home for the blind in the Chicago area. We're one of only 2 Jewish homes for the blind in the country. We're a home where the mitzvah is something that happens every day. There's always something beautiful that's done. You ask Ceil about her impression. To me, I would say that it's been a source of inspiration, because every day I see such beautiful things happen that every day I feel I'm on a higher plane because of what I see occur there.
It shows. True. What do you want to achieve? You've both been there over a year and a half. You came together. What do you hope to achieve? In the last year and a half, you've done so much. What do you want to do?
I think the main thing for myself is to try to achieve a sense of knowledge on the part of the general community, Jewish community, and the general community altogether, that we're here as a resource for them when they need us.
What kind of impact do you think you've had so far?
I hope a good one. But also, we would like to encourage any of the blind or visually impaired people living in the area to come to the home and take part of our activities. It's all free of charge to any visually impaired person, and just be part of us and just try to give it that homey feeling.
You have, I don't know if you call it a drop-in center, but so what kind of services do you provide for the blind outside the home?
Oh, a multiple of them. I get phone calls galore looking for all sorts of resources. They come to the home because they're lonely, and we have the van now that we do pick up the elderly people to come to the home where they just don't have any place to go.
We have dances.
We have dances 4 times a year with a live orchestra, and we invite them to join us for lunch. Thank you, Fred.
Sounds like you have as much fun as the residents.
Oh, we do.
Before we close, we want to key on the address and the phone number. So if people watching are interested in finding out more about the Association of Jewish of Chicago, we'd like them to write and call and ask for one of you two and find out more about it. Like to have activities, sending school children there. So I'd like to read the card, and so people will write and call.
All right.
I believe that's Association of Jewish Blind, 3525 West Foster Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60625, and that's 312-478-7040. So I hope you do get calls.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for inviting us here today.
Oh, it was our pleasure. Thank you for opening our eyes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Ceil
Thank
Goldstein,
you.
Fred Oskin. And for Focus, I'm Deborah Palmer.
Make a call.